Hi everyone, Charles from the Food People here. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's my great pleasure to welcome co-founder and CEO of the brilliant, the colourful, the healthy lunch concept that is Kaleido Rolls. It's great to have Laura Mimoun with us today. Laura joins me today to talk about the Kaleido journey to this point, their purpose and ambition, her inspiration for product and brand, the importance of high appeal, as you can see by her background already, the lunch and food to go landscape, and much, much more. Welcome, Laura. It's a great pleasure to have you join us today.
Thanks, Charles. I'm super happy to be here.
Just as an introduction to the food people in conversation with, at the Food People, we're very clear about why we do what we do. We're champions of change, driven every day by our intent to shift the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trends. And this In Conversation With series is all about talking to brands and businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, people across the food and drink spectrum to find out more about why they do what they do, how in their way they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. So with that introduction, it's super fitting to have you here, Laura, today. It's great to be speaking to you. And I think if that's okay, let's get started. Could you start by giving us an introduction to you, a little bit about your background before Kaleido, and then we can talk a little bit more about Kaleido. So what happened pre-Kaleido?
Great. So I'm Laura. I'm the co-founder of Kaleido. I'm also a mother of two lovely daughters.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, thanks. One of them is 5 months old, and the other one is 2.5. Before launching Kaleido, I used to work in marketing for several years.
Yeah.
In big groups. My background is business, so I did a business school, which enabled me to live in Argentina, in China. Okay. This is where I met actually my husband and my co-founder, Dennis. So yeah, food forever and since ever.
And what were the particular businesses or brands of note that you worked with prior to establishing Kaleido?
So basically, just after my business school, I did an internship at Kraft Food in chocolate. And this has been the beginning of many years with Kraft, now known as Mondelez. Yeah. So I worked on Côte d'Or, Milka, in the UK on Green and Black's Organic, and then on Cadbury.
Yeah.
And then I moved to PepsiCo and I worked on the juices there.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that I'm sure was a great foundation for taking on and launching Kaleido, which I guess we'll talk more about in a second. But I'm keen to introduce Kaleido to the In Conversation With audience, and I'm sure some of you, if you've been around London over the last couple of years, you would have seen that. But can you give us an introduction to what is Kaleido?
Kaleido is a twist on classical Vietnamese rice paper rolls. We are a grab-and-go food brand. We have shops. You can find them mainly in London, even if we are now as well in Amsterdam. And we are selling delicious salad rolls in each of these locations that are made freshly every morning.
Fantastic. And of course, they're sitting behind you now. If they are, as I said in my introduction, so playful, so colourful, so healthy, so delicious. But I have to ask you a little bit about the idea. What was, if there was one indeed, is this an idea that kind of was quite organic, or actually was there a light bulb moment behind Kaleido?
So there was a light bulb moment, but then it was a long process between, the idea and my resignation at PepsiCo and yeah, a lot of time to make it happen, basically. But it was very simple and very random. I was with Dennis. We were at home. We made some Vietnamese rice paper rolls with shrimp, coriander, sweet chili sauce, and the day after, we had some rice paper sheets that were left over, and we decided to use them and put what we had in the fridge. So we really started randomly with turkey ham, tomato, and goat cheese spread. And this is how everything started. I told Dennis, wow, but it's a salad sandwich. We could put anything inside. We can dip it, we can eat it with your hands. And for me, what was really interesting about Kaleido was the fact that it was really taking all the market trends I was observing as, as a marketer in my day-to-day job. So it was a product that you could claim as gluten-free or very low in gluten.
Yeah.
It was a product that could be vegan. It was a product that was, convenient. And we were seeing the rise of the convenience need everywhere. So it was really ticking what the people wanted. So too good not to do anything about it.
And what was the process? So that was your light bulb moment. Then what happened? What was the journey, I suppose, between that point and then establishing the business and the brand?
Many months, many discussion about should I leave my secured, well-paid, and as well, great job. I really loved my job. Is it worth it? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? We did as well a bit of market study. So we went to a store, a healthy store, and we counted the number of people that were entering to do like some kind of financials. But I guess, it was mainly inside. It was an instinct that, that could work and that we had to do it. It was also driven by, I think, the momentum of small brands I could feel at that time. So when I was working at Pepsi, for instance, we were watching a lot these very small juice players like Safse Smoothie or Wow Drinks and things like that.
Disruptive brands, the smaller disruptive
exactly
brands.
And we're like, looking at them obsessively sometimes. And even for Naked, there was this sentence we used to say at Pepsi. It was run Naked juice as if it was run from your garage. So there was this mental, there was this interest about startup businesses and agility and innovation and so on that was really in vogue. And I think somehow I wanted to be part of that as well. And I felt I had a lot of things I could win from that. So
what was between the idea and the launching of the brand Kaleido, what was the time scale between that? How long did it take?
I think it took me, I don't remember exactly, but several months to resign. And I launched actually quite quickly because everyone told me, you have to test your idea, especially when it's in food. I think people expect you to test the idea and see if there is a demand for it. I think if you're building a tech business, it's, it's different, but for food, the best way to know if we're going to work is to see if people want to buy it. So very quickly we did some food markets. So we launched very rapidly, and some of the recipe we have are still the original recipes.
Really? When did you launch?
We launched in 2018.
Yeah, okay, fine. And just reflecting a little bit back on the contrast, I suppose, between being an entrepreneur and a business owner and working as a marketeer as part of a global food brand, is that quite a contrast, or are there similarities?
I think, as surprising as it could be, I think the starting point is the same. You have a brand that you are working very hard in both, cases to grow. So in that respect, it's quite similar.
Yeah.
Both brands have a story, an objective, you have some KPIs, you have a team. I guess right now my scope is obviously much wider. And there is not a single day where we are not creating something as well from scratch, and something that sometimes we have never done, my team has never done, but also sometimes the world has never done.
Yes.
And I guess in that respect, it's very different. But yeah, now I used to do some financials when I was launching a new product, a new chocolate bar. I obviously did some financials. I had some management. I had contact with R&D and so on. But now it's either all me or very, very close to me.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thinking, and I suppose this sort of naturally follows on from some of the things that you would have done in as a marketeer in a global food brand, thinking specifically about the why behind Kaleido and the purpose. What is it that you feel that you're setting out to do as a brand, and what are those fundamental needs that you're satisfying, or problems with the broader landscape that Kaleido solves?
I got excited because the product I had in my hands was answering the need of something healthy,
yeah,
but playful. So our mission is really to make healthy playful. It is to reinvent the healthy food landscape by very small twists. So rice paper rolls have always existed. I have not invented the rice paper rolls, but we are inventing the way we can consume them, and we are creating a food category from them with flavor of the world. And I think, what is unique and what I need to keep in mind every time I am, launching a new product or adding a product into the range, even if it's like a bag of crisps or a drink, is it innovative? Is it healthy? Is it playful? Is there something a bit unique about it?
Yeah. And when and we can see by the image that sits behind you there, when you look at the brand, it is fun and playful, and you talked about healthy. How important are those things, and how does playful kind of manifest across everything that you do, or healthy, how does that manifest across everything that you do? They're clearly key pillars of the brand.
I think it's definitely a key pillar. I believe it's linked with the diet culture that a lot of people are fighting against at the moment. In the past, eating healthy was associated with, doing a diet, and it was associated with restriction. Yeah. Most of the healthy food players are, white and clinical with a bit of blue. And I guess Kaleido, I want Kaleido to be the opposite of that. I want Kaleido to associate health with pleasure, with color, with something that is actually positive. And this is why the playfulness and the fun is at the heart of the brand and the product.
Yeah.
So you're eating your salad as you would eat a burger or a burrito. And I think that's what makes the experience exciting.
Yeah, and it manifests itself in a physical sense as well, because I think it was at your store in St Pancras. It's St Pancras, that's right, isn't it? And I sat in there, and when people came in, when they look at the counter, they smile. They instantly, their face lights up. I don't know if it's the color or the proposition, but that fun and playfulness is quite infectious, and you can see people as they engage taking that on board themselves.
Right. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and it's good that that's obviously an integral part of the brand and what it is that you're setting out to do. But it was interesting it manifests itself in a kind of physical sense as well.
Yeah, but I think it's funny you said that, because it's something we are trying to maybe unintentionally, but do across the mix and the in-store execution. So the way the display is built with, you know, the little domes, and people can mix and match.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you want to have a playful experience. You want to choose a lot of things like you would do in a candy shop, you know.
Yes.
So I think all of that is definitely part of, you know, of the brand.
And that's quite interesting you say that, actually, because that is one of the things, the subtle kind of cues that I felt came through, was this sort of kiddie candy type smile that would come from that that sort of experience as well. It's interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, and that could, I guess, manifest itself in lots of different aspects of communication and in-store execution, or wording and narrative and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, so we need to be careful, because sometimes people think we are an ice cream shop. So it's also why we are doing a rebranding at the moment. So I think maybe sometimes we are going a bit too far away into that direction, and people do not understand quickly enough what we are offering and so on. But yeah, I guess there are pros and cons of.
Obviously, you're on a mission to grow and scale the brand. How do you remain true to that mission and those values that you talked about as you go on that scaling journey? Is that easy, or is that a bit of a challenge?
It's not easy, especially because from the beginning at Kaleido, we have decided to make some, you know, tough choices. So we are cooking almost everything from scratch. We are not using any refined sugar, and all of these decisions have been made for a reason, but they have a cost. They have a cost that is not always perceived as a value for our customers. So what I'm trying to do is to really understand what is that it is important for the customer, what it is that is important for me as a founder, for the brand, to be true to, you know, our DNA, to make sure that our promise is, you know, remains. So no, it's not easy, but it's very exciting, very interesting, because I believe that these are the choices that build, you know, or not, solid foundations for the future. So for sure, we will need to make some compromises, but I do my best to make sure we are, you know, remaining true to who we are, and that we are giving to the people what they want as well. So sometimes it means accepting as well that things are not exactly the way I vision them. But it's part of the game, and it's needed.
Yeah, and I guess it's that balance of what your vision and what you want versus what people are looking for and are ready for. Probably, I'm imagining that educating consumers and taking them on the Kaleido journey is part of that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that has been the case from the very beginning. When we did food markets, we had people eating the greaseproof paper around the rolls because they didn't know what was the rice paper and what was the greaseproof paper. So we, like, from the very beginning, we understood that, you know, launching a new category would be difficult and a challenge, and that we will need to educate the customer. But there are some stuff where we need to adapt. So for instance, we are going to launch by the end of this week, actually, a side rice. So it would be a rice with a bit of satay sauce, still made by us with like 5 ingredients, a bit of coriander and a bit of crispy onion. And it's something we had in the pipeline for a while, but I was never ready to do that, because for me, it was not really playful, not really clever, not really healthy. but actually some people want that, and if we do not offer them that, they will not consume rolls alongside this rice.
Yeah.
And they need the more fulfilling, proposition to reassure them to try actually Kaleido. So I think it's the right thing to do, and yeah, we'll see how it works.
Fantastic. That sounds really really exciting. And I guess for some people, they're looking for slightly more, a slightly bigger eat, slightly more fulfillment from their on-the-go choice, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
We've mentioned the word Kaleido probably over 100 times already, but I have to ask you, what is in the brand name? What does Kaleido mean for you?
So before being Kaleido, we were Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
So Kaleido is definitely a shortcut of Kaleidoscope, which is a very interesting name because a lot of people do not know what a kaleidoscope is. But
Yeah.
for the people that do know what a kaleidoscope is, we call the brand name Kaleido because we believe that our product looks like a kaleidoscope. It's a tube, it's full of color, but also it's a bit clever. And this is what we felt when we had the idea of, doing a little twist on the classical Vietnamese rice paper rolls. It was just a bit clever, a bit like a lot of people told us, oh, but that's so clever. How I didn't think about that before, a salad sandwich. This is so cool. This is so clever. And it's just a little twist. And we felt Kaleidoscope was really ticking out of that. And it was a nice, story for, to express how we felt about the product, how we felt about the mission.
Yeah.
It's bringing a lot of joy, a little smile on people when they use a kaleidoscope. It's full of colors. So yeah. That's
brilliant. And it's exactly that, isn't it? It's the color, the fun, the clever, the twist. It's all kind of wrapped up in, if you've used the kaleidoscope, then it will take you there. It will take you to that space. I have to ask you a little bit about, you're obviously operating in a super competitive landscape, the lunch, food to go, grab and go. How do you see that landscape changing, and what do you think is driving that change, and perhaps even what do you think that will look like in the future?
That's a big question. It's a very tough and competitive market, especially right now with the inflation, the staff shortage, and so on. It's a very tough environment as well because you can find today a compelling grab and go offer for £3.50 in supermarkets.
Yeah.
So I guess what people would be looking for when they come to a chain like us would be an experience, innovation, some values. I think, with the post-COVID ways of living, let's say, people are in the office 3 days per week. So it means 3 days per week they will eat out, 2 days per week they will eat at home.
Yeah.
And I believe people should eat boring at home, and when they are out, they would have their more like playful experience.
Yeah.
And they will want something that is a bit more exciting, a bit more different. So I guess, we are going to enter into a funny period where you have this very, price-led offer at £3.50 with your bag of crisps, drinks, and sandwich, and then you will have your £10 lunch that are a bit more exciting, that are less often. And I think it's a challenge, for traders like us. We lost 1 or 2 days per trading of trading per week.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I think people will be looking for more excitement, and and a real value proposition when they will eat out, especially in the inflation context.
Yeah. And do you think health will be increasingly more important in that sort of lunch grab and go context into the future?
I think it will be, and I think it is. If
Yeah.
you look at the option, even in the more permissible restaurants, let's say, you do have a healthy option now, you do have a vegan option now. So it is definitely a reality, and everyone had to adapt. I think it's a funny question for healthy food players, because also, I guess the competition is harder for them, because now the more permissible players are also adding a healthy offering. But I guess yesterday I was in Canary Wharf, and I saw that Cogin, which is a very big healthy grab-and-go chain in France, that has launched in London a few years ago, has closed down. I've seen as well that Crush closed down their site in Canary Wharf and is going to be replaced by a pasta brand. And I just called Denise and I was like, oh my God, you can see, a healthy chain replaced by a pasta brand is such a symbol, So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the market will go on that respect. I guess it would be a mix of having more healthy option in the more permissible places and having healthy players being maybe a bit more playful and a bit more open-minded about their offering. And I think, it would be maybe the new way of...
and really not compromising on taste and experience. That, I think, is one of the things that comes through with the Kaleido proposition. There's absolutely no compromise whatsoever in terms of flavor delivery and the kind of whole organoleptic experience and the broader experience as well. You that comes through very, very strongly, and therefore you don't feel like you're making that sacrifice at all.
Yeah, I guess it was intentional, and we are not a diet brand. So we are using oil, we are using peanut butter, which is, by the way, very calorific. We are using cream cheese. We are just trying to use ingredients that are as natural as possible, with less nasties added as possible. So our sweet chili sauce is made of 5 ingredients and no refined sugar. So these are the kind of choices we've made, but with never being into the diet roots, nor compromising on the taste, but just by trying to make the smart choices.
Are there some factors for you that make a successful Kaleido product? Because there is a certain magic that just feels there's a combination of things that just somehow make it work. Without obviously giving away all of your secrets. How would you characterize those?
It's actually very difficult. And when I started Kaleido, I asked some people to help me to develop the recipe. I guess because of my background, I was like, but normally I have R&D developing my chocolate bar. This is how it works in big businesses. You're the marketer. You receive the samples and you say, oh, this one has too many hazelnuts, and suddenly I had to develop the product myself. And to start with, I asked some people to, help me on that, like chefs and so on. And it was never right. It was never my vision. It was either not a salad, or too much of a salad, or not delicious enough. So I guess the balance is difficult to get. I believe that because the product is so innovative, it is good sometimes to go with classical combinations. So this is why we have, for instance, a salmon and cream cheese, or we have, at the moment for the summer, we have a Parma ham and melon, which is a very, nice combination. So I developed my recipes with starting from, classical combination, and then it's just about lot of tasting, lot of tasting.
Are there any rules, do you think? And when, because I think that's one of the, you're taking culinary inspiration from all around the globe, and there's clearly evidence of there's Middle Eastern influence and Italian influence. There's some classic combos in there, but also presenting that in a rice paper roll format that kind of breaks some of the rules as well.
Yeah, we definitely have some rules. I'm looking for a crunch. I'm looking for a sauce. I'm looking, to get something moistured and crunchy in the same time, and pretty. So I definitely have, my crazy rules. And I think sometimes it has slow us down in our innovation process. But I think it's also what made us successful in a way, because we have had, a perfect product consistency, and a product that was as pretty and delicious as it could be.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you actually about visual appeal, because I think that's one of the things that really is super striking about the product, is how important is the visual element of the build in the kind of creative process, I suppose. We eat with our eyes first, and the products behind you and in store are testimony to that. And how you layer different ingredients would of course would be important if you were making a sandwich, but super important in this context. The visual layering, it adds a whole completely different dimension to the product.
So definitely important. And here again, I think it's about getting the balance right. In the past, I did some recipes that were maybe much more complex in terms of look, and potentially much more Instagrammable, which we know can be, something quite interesting in today's world. However, I believe at the end of the day, what people want to eat is food.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that your food looks like food. And sometimes adding too much like gimmicky, I would say, can actually play in your disfavor instead of, keeping it simple. And I think, as I said at the beginning, we are all about innovation, but very simple innovation, very simple twist. And we need to keep that in mind for the design as well. What we don't want to be is associated with like rainbow donuts or things like that. No. We really want to remain a weekly option.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I guess leading on from that, freshness and consistency, I'm assuming, are absolutely key to this. And how do you manage that? Do you hand roll on site? Do you do central production? How does that work? Again, not asking you to share your intimate secrets from a business perspective, but just interested as to how that works.
So at the moment, we operate from a central kitchen and we deliver our 5 shops. So all the rolls are produced on the morning, and they are as fresh as possible. You will see very soon a big reveal where we are going to roll on site for the first time, which is something very exciting, and which is something we believe our customer want to see. We have done a lot of classes in the past. It's something that will enable us as well to do more of that. What really matters at the end of the day is product consistency. And I always tell my chefs in the kitchen, when you go to McDonald's, because this is what people know, when you want to eat a Big Mac, it has to taste a Big Mac. Yeah. If the sauce is slightly different, you will not be happy about that. And this really resonates with everyone, because everyone has had, a McDonald's burger once in his life or every weekend, whatever, but still everyone will understand that. Yeah. And I think this is really what we are trying to achieve at Kaleido. and I think we are doing a great job on that. If you know about the complexity of the product, which is immense.
Yeah. And it will also give that, I guess, there's an element of theatre that comes with creating that on site and in front of people, which is part of the broader, I guess, value add experience as well that will come with that. Well, I mean, that's super exciting. So we look forward to seeing that.
Watch out the space. We will invite you to the launch party.
Yeah, definitely. That's super exciting. When you launched the product, not rice paper rolls, as we've already recognized, have been around for a very, very long time, but putting the proposition together in this way was largely unique. There are now some competitors in your space. How do you feel that how do you continue to own that space? And I suppose, is competition a good thing?
So we are at the moment still owning the space in the UK, but also in the world to a certain extent. There are some big players in the world as well, but every day we are receiving some requests to open in Dubai, in Italy, in the States. So I think we are recognized as a market leader. There are a lot of pro about that. There are also a lot of cons. At the moment, it is true that sometimes it feels people are just copying us and picking what's best from Kaleido and leaving the rest, and actually doing better than us in some elements. Mm-hmm. I guess it's our role as well to acknowledge that and also get inspired by what the other people are doing. It's also important that we remain the leaders, so we need to, challenge ourselves, which sometimes competition help us to do, because you want to stay ahead, and it's healthy to have other players. So I guess in that respect, it's important, but more than anything, it's more about the category. Yeah. If really we want Kaleido to be big, we need to have competitors, because we need people to fancy eating rice paper rolls every week. Yeah. And to do that alone, it's impossible. Yeah. So Pokeball will not be a Poke category if there was only one Poke. Exactly. So it's hard. It's challenging. Sometimes it's energizing, but it's part of the game. Yeah, no, definitely. You need different access points, don't you, in different geographies and different tiers, so that people can engage with the broader concept and identify and work out that you're the market leader. Yes, we need to remain the best. And sometimes it's difficult, because there are some good players that are launching, but for now, so far so good. Tell us a little bit about rolling for charity. What is that, and why is that important to you? That sounds really exciting. So rolling for charity is something I created, I guess, the first week I launched Kaleido. So something that was part of what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur, as part of my brand launch. It's a very simple idea. We are teaching people how to roll. They are paying to come to the class, and half of the profit that we're making is going to Diabetes UK. Oh, okay. So I chose Diabetes UK because I have a personal relationship with Diabetes UK, because there are a lot of people in my family that have been or are diabetic, and I also really like the brand. So they are promoting food swap, they are promoting a healthy lifestyle, they are encouraging people that do not do sport to walk more, and I am a strong believer of all the things they're promoting. So the fit felt natural for me. It's something we had to stop for the past year, because really since COVID, because with COVID we could not do the classes, And then I did a couple of online classes, but it's not as fun.
No. Yeah.
But we really hope to start them again with our new store launch that will enable us to do that. So that's one of the excitement about the new store launch.
Yeah, definitely. You're right about what they do as a charity. It's a lot. They're trying to encourage a lot of people to make small changes, aren't they? Small
Yeah.
in behavior, which I guess as a brand is what you're trying to do as well. You've got 5 outlets now. I have to ask you, what does the future? You've alluded to some of those things, some of the exciting things that are in the pipeline. What does taking the brand to the next level? What does that look like?
So opening more stores. This is our plan. We slow down a bit our expansion and store opening because we wanted to nail first the rebranding, which is something that will be revealed in the next store. And I guess it was important to step back. It's very easy to always run after new store opening for the fame, for the valuation of your company. But at some point, it's important just to step back and tell yourself, okay, are we ready actually, or do we need to tweak a couple of things? So this is what we are doing now, and then opening more stores
and new geographies. You said you mentioned Amsterdam. Is expansion overseas part of that program as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we would like to do and are working on.
My last question, and probably the hardest one, is what is your favorite flavor? It's a bit like asking you to choose your favorite child, I'd imagine, but which is your favorite?
So yes, it's like asking about my favorite child. I think this is why I created the mix and match contour. It's because it's so hard for me to choose, and I'm a Libra, and it's something that I hate in a restaurant, to have to choose just one dish.
Yeah.
I think it's for me that the world has created tapas in all the restaurants. But I guess, what I like is to be able to take actually several of them. And this is why, this is what you can do in Kaleido.
That's a great way of not committing to one flavor. That's brilliant. That concludes this episode of the Food People in Conversation with Laura. Really, on behalf of us all at the Food People and the In Conversation with audience, a real pleasure to speak to you today. You've inspired us all. Your enthusiasm for the brand and your product is absolutely infectious, and in talking to you, it's exactly the same as walking into the store. It just makes you smile. So thank you. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you today, and I think we all look forward to following super closely your growth plans and ambitions and your new store openings. It's going to be super exciting, and watching you continue to shift the future of food and drink. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So do join our TFP community for the details of our latest In Conversation with episodes, as well as the latest free to access food and drink trends foresight. Visit thefoodpeople.co.uk and complete your details at the footer of the page. On behalf of Laura and myself, thanks so much for listening to the Food People in Conversation with. Join with us in the trends of today and the foresight for tomorrow to shift the future of food and drink. And I, as always, leave it with one question, which is, how are you shifting the future of food and drink? Thank you so much for listening.